Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, I wanted to continue my discussion of underutilized, underappreciated, and sometimes even forgotten unique items. They're currently very cheap in the Delirium Trade League. Now, the 5 items I'm going to present today are all very, very, very rare. However, that hasn't changed the fact that they're very cheap in this league. Delirium's dropping a lot of additional items, and as a result, even things that are very rare are pretty affordable for most players. You might not be able to afford them straight away, but you can certainly aspire to having these pretty quickly. The possible exception to the last one. So the first item that I want to mention is actually part of a pair, and that is the unique bow Slivertongue. Now this is reasonably available as a 6-link item, even for just for a couple of exalts. There's a few of them available for trade. And if you're willing to link it yourself, you can pick up the base bow for just a few Chaos Orbs. Now, this is a drop that is exclusive to the Guardian of the Hydra, and it does a lot of damage for a bow, and has powerful synergies with forking projectiles. And that's why we're going to be discussing it in conjunction with Rigwald's Quills. And my, how the mighty have fallen here. This used to be a 1,000 to 2,000 Chaos item in trade leagues, and now it's pretty widely available for for 50, 60 Chaos. Even if the first few listings aren't legitimate, if they're bad faith listings, I have checked, there's a lot of them available under 60 Chaos at the moment. So Slivertongue has a lot of powerful projectile forking synergies. And whilst this is a rare bow, it's cheap and it grants enough physical damage and critical strike chance to be a powerful option on either physical bow builds or in conjunction with elemental conversion bow skills, such as Ice Shot. Now, it is fantastic, as I said, in conjunction with Rigwald's Quills, because a Rigwald's Quills is the cheapest way to add forking onto your bow projectiles. When I say cheapest, I don't mean cheapest in a cost in currency. I mean in terms of opportunity cost. So how much are you sacrificing in order to get projectiles forking? With Rigwald's Quills, all you're sacrificing is your quiver slot, which is not a trivial expense, but it's certainly a lot less than giving up an entire support gem to use something like fork support or awakened fork support. Instead of that, you can use a damage multiplier support instead, and that's why Rigwald's Quills is so good. Now, a very important note, Slivertongue prevents chaining and projectile return entirely. This is due to the interaction of pierce, fork, and chain. So, projectiles use up all of their pierces first, and then after they've used up all their pierces, they use up all of their forks. After they've used up their forks, only then are they allowed to start chaining. So they need to have used up all of their pierces and all of their forks. With Slivertongue, providing unlimited pierce after forking, this means that your projectiles, if you have one pierce from other sources, you'll pierce the first monster you hit, and then on the second one, you'll fork. After that fork, each of the fork projectiles will have infinite piercing. This means that they'll never get to the point that they'll be able to take advantage of any chaining or returning. So this means that both chain from things like chain support or from the Deadeye Ascendancy and the second fork from Awakened Fork will never happen. Slivertongue also scales very well with item quality. If you decide to use this, you may wish to consider getting it beyond the normal maximum quality of 20%. You can do this in 2 ways. You can either use the 30% quality Beastcraft, or you can use Hillock in Transportation to raise its quality to 24, 26, or 28%. As you can't chance a Hydra-only unique, or any boss unique for that matter, perfect fossils are not an option here. So, that's Slivertongue and Rigwald's Quills. Rigwald's Quills, very simple item, but very, very, very powerful. For Rigwald's Quills, there's 2 divination cards you can look for this, and the one that's interesting is Etched in Blood, which is a divination card that's surprisingly cheap this league and grants a 2 implicit corrupted Rigwald's Quills. The reason that's really good is that one of the potential corruptions is that projectiles chain, and another one is that projectiles fire an additional, bow attacks fire an additional arrow. And whilst the chain isn't useful in conjunction with Slivertongue, if you get a chaining Rigwald's Quills, you have hit a lot of currency there. Third item I want to discuss is a Void Battery, and that's over here. Void Battery is an example of a unique item that has become much more affordable than it's ever been really in Path of Exile's history. This has been the most expensive unique wand in the game in many leagues. It's a pure spellcaster powerhouse, almost always dual-wielded. It requires you to invest in power charge generation somewhere else, and also requires you to invest in additional maximum power charges. So Void Battery will provide you one additional maximum power charge, but you really want to be using this on a build that can get 8, 9, even 10 power charges total. In exchange, Void Battery provides damage. If you have 10 power charges, the net effect of this 80% reduction to spell damage and this 25% increased spell damage per charge is a 170% increased spell damage. That's huge, especially when you factor in that the rest of the stats on it are good. 40% increased spell damage from the implicit, so that's up to 210% that you've got there. 12% cast speed, 53% increased global crit chance, 48 mana is okay. All in all, Void Battery is an absolute powerhouse, provides a hell of a lot of damage for self-cast builds, and is just an all-around powerful item. The next item I want to discuss is another bow, but a very different one, and this is Doomfletcher's Prism. Doomfletcher's Prism is a prophecy upgrade to the base bow Doomfletch. Because a small but meaningful number of Doomfletchers drop already 6-linked from the Delirium content, you can acquire this item already 6-linked for well under an Exalted Orb at the time I'm making this video. Doomfletcher's Prism starts with low base damage. However, it then has the very powerful line. In fact, the only reason you use this bow: gain 100% of weapon physical damage as extra damage of each element. What this does is it causes you to get essentially 4 times the bonus of any source of flat physical damage that you can add to Doomfletcher's Prism. So you'll get it 1 time as its base physical, then 1 time as fire, 1 time as lightning, and 1 time as cold. The best way to abuse this is in conjunction with the changes to Split Arrow. So this bow was already pretty serviceable a couple of leagues ago. It wasn't great, but it was serviceable, in conjunction with things like steel rings, providing flat physical damage, deafening essences of contempt, adding more flat physical damage to various jewelry slots. At this point, the bow was serviceable. But then Split Arrow received a massive buff in patch 3.9, adding 56 to 85 physical damage to attacks to Split Arrow projectiles at level 20. So that's physical damage, and then you get it as, because of Doomfletcher's Prism, you're getting the same amount of damage added as cold, lightning, and as fire as well. So effectively, you're getting quadruple the benefit of this huge buff to Split Arrow. And Split Arrow is not the worst skill in the world on its own. This can then be combined with Atsuri's Promise to gain even more damage added as Chaos, and even Zerfi's Heart to allow your Chaos damage to ignite, shock, and chill enemies. Finally, because 6-link Doomfletcher's Prisms are so cheap, whether you purchase it from another player as Doomfletcher's Prism 6-linked, or whether you purchase a 6-linked Doomfletch and then run the Ancient Doom Prophecy to upgrade it into Doomfletcher's Prism, which will retain the 6 links. You can even Corruption Hunt with this bow. So you can look for one that's got 6 links in colours you could use, go and quality it up, then corrupt it, and if you get a great corruption, fantastic. If not, try and resell it and then start again. The original implicit is actually pretty good, 24% increased elemental damage with attack skills, and make sure you bless this up to 24. It's very easy to do, but still there are a couple of possibilities that are even better. The last item I want to discuss is the most complex by far, and that is the Precursors Emblem. And here I've just got a couple of the most expensive and best of these. Now there's a lot of complexity to this item. Just as the Watcher's Eye is the randomness-based reward from Uber Elder, the Precursors Emblem is the randomness-based reward from the Delve Mines. This is acquired only from a vendor recipe. Oh, there's also a divination card, but we'll get to that separately. What you need to do is vendor 3 specific rings in order to get an emblem. Each of these rings, and there are 9 total rings that you can use as components to a Precursors Emblem. Each of these rings drops from a Delve boss. 3 of them drop from Kurgle, 3 of them drop from all being the hardest of the Delve bosses both to find and to kill, and 3 of them dropping from Ahu, the other one. So the ones that drop from all are Potembo's Mountain, Uzaza's Valley, and Achilles' Meadow. The other 2 Delve bosses have their own 3 each. Now what you need to vendor is one of them that has a mountain in the name, one that has valley in the name, and one that has meadow in the name. And you'll get an end product that has 5% maximum life, 5% maximum energy shield, some stats, so all the ones that you'll see here are Topaz Rings, they'll all give 20 intelligence. If you get a 2-stone ring, it will give 20 to each of 2 stats, and if you get a prismatic ring, it will be 20 to all 3 stats. Then you'll get 3 charge-related mods. These can be endurance charge, these can be frenzy charge, and they can be power charge mods. And you can control which one you get. So, these charges will be based upon the input rings that you used, the charge mods. If you vendor a ruby ring, then you will get an endurance charge based mod. If you vendor a topaz ring, you'll get a power charge based mod. If you vendor a sapphire ring, then you will get a frenzy charge based mod. So if you were to vendor all 3 of the topaz rings, so the 3 different topaz rings, if we just bring up a list of those now. So these are the 3 of them that are topaz rings: Potembo's Mountain, Potembo's Meadow, and Potembo's Valley. If you vendor all 3 of these at once, you will receive a topaz ring. It will have one tier 1 power charge mod, one tier 2 power charge mod, and one tier 3 power charge mod. To make things more complex, there's some overlap and some things appear in multiple tiers. The community as a whole does not know exactly how this item works. There are some nuances that we don't know. However, generally speaking, you will get better mods if you use rings that have been sourced from all. However, because synergy tends to trump power, you'll usually want to turn in 3 that all give the same type of that are the same element and therefore give the same type of charge. When you do this, there is a very slim chance you will get something truly extraordinary. Now this is something that someone managed to fluke during the Legion League. It's been posted on Reddit. And you'll see here that there is a potential. If you are running a build that has 8 power charges, this ring has 48% critical strike multiplier and a whole bunch of lightning damage, and as well as that has, lightning resistance, life, and energy shield. But that's only the start. In conjunction with other sources of power charges, you might even get as much as 10 or 11 power charges on an assassin build, and then at that point you're looking at over 60% critical strike multiplier and an ungodly amount of lightning damage that you're dealing on every single hit that you do. That's the absolute upper end. But at the more realistic end, you're looking at things like, let's drop down below the 60 exalt mark and go down to some of the sort of powerful but not extraordinary Precursors emblems that exist. Here's one that someone's asking 30 exalts for. Not sure if they'll get that or not, but it's got lightning damage per power charge, a single instance of crit multi, so not the double crit multi that we had before that was insane, and increased movement speed per power charge. Then if we go further down, we'll start to find some that are less impressive. So let's reverse the order that we've got here, and you'll see here power charge duration is a very mediocre mod, regenerate life per power charge is a very mediocre mod, movement speed per power charge is better but is still underwhelming. So there's a lot of variance in this. And that's, I think, the key thing to know with the Precursors Emblem. You are taking a very big risk if you try to craft something truly extraordinary with Precursors Emblems. However, you certainly can get there. It's not just the Topaz Rings that you can make. All of the various Precursors Emblems can be very good. And so we've got here the Topaz Rings, but you can also have the Achilles ones, which are a lot cheaper. You can get yourself a set of Achilles, Meadow, Mountain, and Valley in order to make a Ruby Precursors Ring for only about 80 Chaos Orbs at the moment. And that has a lot of potential to be extraordinarily good too. The key thing that you want to do is play to the strengths of your build. If there's a type of charge that you're using, consider a Precursors Emblem that is linked to that charge. I don't usually suggest mixing and matching the various types. There are sometimes you can sometimes get a good result doing that. So, for instance, if you're playing a build that has both endurance charges and power charges, you could conceivably turn in 2 ruby rings plus 1 topaz ring, and conceivably get a reasonable result from that. But it is less common because there'll be less synergy between the 3 mods. Remember, the key thing that makes a Precursors Emblem good is having higher tier mods. The thing that makes it great is having those mods synergizing with each other. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you've found this interesting, and good luck with your Precursors Emblems. Just one last thing I want to point out is that the Divination card Remembrance can get you a random Precursors Emblem which will be corrupted. This almost always is terrible, but there is a slim chance to get something extraordinary, and as a result, that card is not... it should not be worth absolute garbage. It should be, at least a few chaos each.